when Tom Dolan took me on a tour of his restored grist mill in rural Ireland, I knew I was supposed to be paying attention to his descriptions of the place, more than 200 years old and still standing as straight as the day that it was built. I tried to listen carefully to his explanation of how the stone wheel had been shaped to grind the meal, how the wooden gears had been painstakingly restored to their former beauty and utility. But as I watched the wooden water wheel churning steadily along, all I could think about was bread. Soda bread. I had been given a slice by Tom and his wife Sandy before our tour, and I could still taste it as we walked around the mill. It's the everydayness of soda bread that I find so appealing. The simplicity, the familiarity, the comfort. But for me, soda bread is hardly an everyday affair. And in fact, in our house growing up, it was a one-day-a-year type of bread. Let me explain. I grew up wearing green sweaters to school on St. Patrick's Day. I had worked it out in my mind that I was 87.5% Irish, and every March 17th, I would head proudly off to school, wearing whatever green something I could find in my own closet or borrow from a sister. Nothing was too big or too small, so long as it was green. In the evening, my mom would continue the celebration of our Irish heritage by serving up big bowls of potato chowder, paired with slices from a loaf of soda bread. She brought the bread straight from the oven to the table, and our butter would melt right into it, pooling in the cracks and crevices between the caraway seeds and currants she'd folded into the dough. It was the only time during the year that my family ate soda bread, and since moving out of my parents' home, I haven't had my yearly loaf. Last March 17th, when I tried to make it for the first time for myself, I ended up with bread that weighed a half ton and wasn't cooked through the middle. Clearly, I was in need of a little instruction. And so while the millstones in Belmont whirred, I was busy thinking of a way to track down a proper soda bread recipe. Something that would come out as warm and delicious as the one I remembered. But more than recreating the bread of my youth, I was after something else, and I hesitate to use the word. But I suppose what I wanted more than anything was to find the real thing. I realize it's a bit of a cliche for an American girl with a tenuous claim to her Irish roots to chase people around the Irish countryside, trying to uncover the secret of soda bread. But as long as I was here, I thought I should have a go at it. I started my quest with a morning baking session with my friend Fiona. She'd driven up to County Offaly from Dublin, carrying with her a basket full of ingredients and a recipe. And right away, she set me straight. I wouldn't be finding just one soda bread recipe.
We're going to make soda bread, which is a recipe that lots of people have very different versions of. But this particular one is from my friend Alex. So I asked him what his favourite soda bread recipe was, and he was so enthusiastic about it that I thought I had to do his one. So he said that this was his granny's recipe, and for years he'd been saying, "Oh, my granny's recipe for soda bread is the best one ever," and he was making it, and then he noticed one day that it was the one that's on the flour packet. So he thought he'd been passed on for generations and generations, but then he discovered it wasn't the case.
And to tell you the truth, I was mildly relieved. It was on the bag of flour, so I knew it had to be basic, which is really what I was after, something classic and something I wouldn't mess up. True to form, Fiona added her own addition to Alex's granny's recipe, a teaspoon of sugar. A trick that attracted Dooley also has up her sleeve.
My mother always made the bread. We never actually learnt everything that she did, you know.
No.
But unfortunately, but I make the brown bread. I buy wheat meal. O'Sullivan's have the wheat meal, and I put 3 cups of wheat meal and 1 cup of plain flour, and mix it with. I put a flat teaspoonful of bread soda, and a teaspoonful of sugar. And nobody around here puts sugar in it, but I put the sugar in it, and a pinch of salt. And sometimes I can put a little square of margarine, about half an ounce, and it makes it nice and soft. And I mix all that with 3/4 of a pint of
buttermilk. Yeah. That's what you get from churning, sour milk. You get it from the creameries now, don't they?
And I have to cook it in a tin because it's an electric cooker. Long ago, as I said, they'd cook it on the flat, but I cook it for 3/4 of an hour or so, and that's my brown bread.
Let me pause here just for a moment. I was confused for the better part of the week. Brown bread? It's brown, made in part with what Americans call whole wheat flour. Soda bread? It's made to rise with bicarbonate of soda, what we call baking soda in the US. And their relation? Well, soda bread is a brown bread, unless it's made with white flour, in which case it isn't. Okay. So I'm dealing with the most simple ingredients. White flour, wheat flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and buttermilk. The addition of a little margarine or sugar if I'm really feeling daring. What possibly could I have been doing wrong? As it turns out, it's not the ingredients that matter so much as the way they're mixed.
So the best trick I ever heard for making soda bread is that you have to mix it with your hand in a claw shape. So you hook your hand into a claw and you just start to move all the dry ingredients into the middle.
Carmel Kelly opened her baking operation 10 years ago, after all of the small bakeries in the nearby town of Banagher had long since closed. Every morning, Carmel wakes up to begin her baking at 5 a.m., baking as many as 70 loaves of soda bread each day, each of them mixed by hand.
All by hand, yes, you do that. And different people, you could have the same ingredients, the same measures, and somebody else's bread will taste that bit different from they're mixing it their way there, because they've done it this way. Because the heat of their hand sometimes can be, or their strength and things like that will make a difference.
I'm fairly certain that I made my soda bread neatly with a wooden spoon. Yes, in fact, I am sure that I did not plunge my hands into the sticky, wet dough. But as it turns out, if I wanted to make a good loaf, I'd need to get my hands a little dirty.